Tune in for the activation required to make an impact through your purpose at work and in the world. From sales and marketing executive to now an international speaker, life and business coach, and media host, hosted by Melissa D. White, the activation specialist. That's me. We're getting real about personal and professional moments with the world's top leaders and influencers to help you activate your voice and amplify your story. Now, let's get activated. Hello, and welcome back for another episode of the Activation Hour. I'm your host, Melissa D. White, and we're still locked in with our series, The Season of Becoming. Boy, if you have been tuned in, you've been in for a treat. We've had our guests unpack everything from becoming a digital entrepreneur to how to become an advocate. And I think this one they're all my favorites, but truly, this is a much anticipated conversation with a friend in the industry, a dynamic leader and speaker. He's one of those people, like, you feel the energy before he enters the room and you just know that you're in for a transformative experience. And I'm talking about Rommel Anacan. Rommel and I had the opportunity to meet and connect with one another, not just through the speaker circuit, but we had the chance to share the stage in Nevada a couple of years ago. And I was like, man, like, you ever just encounter somebody and you know you're getting the real person, like you're getting the full totality of who they are. And they are literally, they feel like a full package kind of person. And the more I have followed Rommel over the last few years, this conversation for me is very personal in that these are real questions I had as a fellow speaker and coach, because I saw him begin to show up in spaces as the sum total. And what I call that is today's topic, how to become or becoming the blend. The blend is what I identified as being able to be 100% authentically who you are, whether it's at work, the world, in your family, your marriage, relationships, or otherwise. Rommel knows a lot about this, not just professionally as a leadership coach, but as he personally states, his passion is to help people live their lives where they're meant and how they're meant and designed to live them. Lives of significance, purpose, and fulfillment. People use those terms a lot, but he lives it. I see it. And what I began to see, and following my friend's journey, I saw him pull back the veil a little bit. As speakers, coaches, and leaders, oftentimes we're taught to show up, always be on, always be present, and give our best, which we do. But there's something about strength in showing the weaknesses or the vulnerabilities of who we are. I began to see Rommel show more about his family dynamic, his marriage, how to make sure that your career does not trump your marriage and your success. And then I even began to become endeared to this man of faith as we share our journey as Christians, as ministers, and how do you balance the two, serving people in a corporate way. Y'all, this is going to be good. If you're ready to show up as your authentic self and be the blend, join this conversation with Rommel Anacan here on the Activation Hour. Welcome to the Activation Hour, Rommel. How are you?
Good to see you, I like that.
Yeah.
I have no moves, but I was moving when I was here.
It's a bop. It's just a little two-step. Yeah.
I like it.
Love it. Oh, man. Thank you so much for spending your Friday with me just for an hour here of not just activation, but I want just real conversation.
Oh, yeah.
To catch up with you. I've seen the shift in you. And whenever I see that happen, I'm like, there's an activation happening. I got to hear about it. Something's going on. So tell our audience a little bit about who you are. And like you said, you were excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
So what do you want just to come out the gate and say about who you are in your own personal activation.
Ooh, I love the theme of this series, right? Becoming. And I think for me, the biggest part of my journey has just been that, has been showing up in
Mhm,
how God created me to be and in how I'm wired, in running with those areas that are good,
mhm,
being having the honest awareness to go, that area is not so good. Let's go work on that, or let's get some healing or training or whatever it is. Um, but I would say just for me, it's really been about being me and
mhm,
being comfortable in who I am and being comfortable with what I'm able to do, being comfortable with what I'm not able to do.
mhm,
And that's not an easy journey, and so I think like you were mentioning, for me, um, what I get to do, just like you get to do professionally, is, we get to share from stages or we get to work with teams. And so sometimes we're talking to thousands of people, or tens of thousands of people. And sometimes we're working with one person
mhm,
or a group of people. So that's part has been always been fun to be able to do and work with people in that way and to be a part of people's journeys as well. But I realized that the more comfortable I got with who I was, the better I got in working with people, speaking with people. Actually, I love the activating people in their strengths, in their power, in all that they were designed to be. So
mhm.
I'm on this journey, and basically I like to just say I'm probably a couple steps ahead of the people that might be in an audience somewhere,
Yeah.
maybe one step ahead. I don't know. And I'm just going, hey, just come along with me, and we're going to be on this together, in really just living the life that we were always designed to live.
Mm. Living the life we were always designed to
Yeah.
live. You know what I call that, Romel? I call that going back to the original intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. And what I've learned in my journey too is just that I love that original intent. It's like we're always supposed to be here, right? Like there's this curve, we're learning, we're growing, and then stuff happens in our life, and we just get farther and farther and farther away
Mhm.
from where we were, that original intent, from where we were supposed to be. And then so much for most of us, like life feels like I heard John Eldridge, who's one of my favorite authors. He wrote Wild at Heart. The book's behind me there. And he said, like, sometimes life feels like a movie we've walked into 45 minutes late.
Ooh.
You walk in and you're like, what's going on? What's happening? Who's the good person? Who's the bad guy? I want to get popcorn, but do I want to, and that's how I felt, for me, really when I was aware of this, not all that long ago. I mean, that's what life felt like for me. And I finally had to really buckle in and go, I got some work to do. I got to roll up my sleeves and I gotta do some work here and dive in. And the more that I've been done that, the more I've seen this just tremendous fruit, in all parts of my life. So it's been a tough journey. I'm not going to lie. It's been hard. It's been difficult. It's been brutal. Um, but it's been so good too.
I,
It's been so
I can
good.
tell. I can tell. I want to unpack what you just said because you were going somewhere with that. That you that we talk about transformational work in our lives, and we talk about it's hard work, but people don't often share it. They do it in private behind the scenes, which is
Mm,
okay. Sometimes that's necessary
sure.
because change is messy work. Okay.
Mm, yeah.
However, when you're in spaces like ours and your life has a great impact on the message, the authenticity of what we do, right? A little bit of transparency, like I said, the more you started sharing, the better you got better at what you were
Yeah.
doing. You got good at it, and you hit a new plateau. It's honestly that's how I saw it. I was like, whoa, wait.
Oh,
I saw new topics.
yeah.
Like it was, I was like, whoa, Romel's doing something different. Do you mind sharing the personal activation hour, whether it was family, ministry, career,
Mm,
business? Was there a particular moment when you said, wait, this isn't working and it's
yeah.
time to shift?
Ooh, so good. There's a couple of key moments. One is one that I think no one would have ever seen yet. Like you wouldn't have seen any of the fruit from that, at the time. But I will tell you, probably about 6, 7 years ago. So when I looked at my life,
Mhm.
everything was a disaster. I mean, really, with the exception of our daughter, who was awesome and amazing, every other piece of my life was horrid. I mean, my marriage wasn't great. My business wasn't growing in the way that I wanted it to go. I didn't have a lot of close relationship. I mean, it was just everywhere I looked, things weren't going great.
Okay.
And so I remember I met, my church had a men's mentoring program.
Mhm.
And so I remember meeting with a mentor, or someone who could have been my mentor. It was kind of our introductory meeting.
Mhm.
We met for the first time, and I lay out for him, this is why I want to meet with you, right? And it's
Mm.
45 minutes or whatever of just terribleness, right? I mean, everything's awful. Now, at this time, you can know, like, I'm already starting to speak. I've already started building the business and doing some things, and from an authentic place of where I was. But on behind the scenes, there were some things that just life was just falling apart. And so I remember I tell him everything, and he asks me a couple of questions. The first question he asked was like, "Hey, so Rommel, are you willing to learn?"
Mhm.
From me, are you willing to do the things that I recommend that you do? And I said yes, because it was a legitimate, I'm meeting with him for a reason. Now, this is from a faith perspective, and so this is where this comes in. And then he asked another question that was faith based, because he went to another campus of the church that I was a part of at that time. And he just looked at me and he was like, Rommel, have you fully surrendered to Jesus Christ?
Mm.
And I was like, well, of course. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. But
Yeah.
my internal mechanism was like, if he's asking me this question,
Uh-huh.
there's a reason he's asked me this question. And so I think I answered something like, well, I thought so, but I don't know. And he said, well, are you willing to learn? Like, are you willing to allow me to guide you? Are you willing to let God guide you and lead you? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. He
Right.
said, well, great. And then he dropped this comment on me. He said, hey, because Rommel, your best thinking got you in the mess you're in right now.
Oh, that's
Oh,
a bomb.
and I didn't like him at that moment. I really didn't. But it was true, right? So the first moment was that. And so that started my intense journey of work, like recovery. And I did counseling, I did therapy, I attended, I had developed some relationships with a close group of people. And I just worked on me. We worked on our marriage and all of this stuff. And that was a couple-year process. And in the meantime, still growing my business, doing my things. Um, so that was like this big piece. And then I think in terms of the big transformation as well. So that was obviously a huge one, because then that got me working and moving and doing. Then when I started to see the fruit in my life, that I started to see that people were responding when I was sharing my struggles
Mhm.
or the things that I just gone through. And it was, and as you know, like, we're always, as a speaker or as a consultant, you're always trying to figure out where's that balance
Yeah.
between oversharing and not sharing enough.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, thank you.
I can
Yay.
see the latter. I'm
Ah,
way too open.
you know, so, but that's good to hear. Oh my gosh. Cause then it was like, now what do I do?
Mm.
And then, so you had the kind of this big peace moment. And then I started to see restoration in my marriage. I started to see my business grow. I started to see things happening. And then I was like, yes, this
Mhm.
is going to be great.
Mhm.
And then started getting that momentum, right? Activated, moving forward. And then COVID hit.
Uh,
And so for me, actually, so COVID actually really then got my wife and I got me thinking about business, both from a very specific business marketing mindset and standpoint, and also from, what else do I want to do?
mm,
And what else do I want to speak on? And marriages and our personal relationships had always been something deep in my heart. And so, with COVID and everything shutting down and me not traveling all around the country, I had some time to really just think and ponder and pray and think
mhm.
about what I wanted to do. And so that's kind of so about a year ago, I think, right, is probably when I started sharing a little bit more of the behind the scenes stuff,
Mhm.
more of my, and because I actually, you know what I discovered? I was trying to think about it. I think the best way is I wanted to reach. I mean, let's be honest. As an entrepreneur, I want to reach a greater audience. I want to be able to impact people and help people, and obviously, I also want to be able to work with people, whether it's companies or people. And
Mm-hmm.
but I realized, like, the more I shared that stuff, the
Yeah.
more people, yeah, could relate, and the more I would get messages from people like, "Oh my gosh, thanks for sharing that struggle because I see you here."
Right.
I see you with the microphone, or I see you where you have that funny statement, or you've got that really great joke, and or whatever it is, and people want to hear the struggle. And so what I realized when I made my social media, and there's this shift that I wanted to tell my story, but the reason I wanted to tell more of my story was that
Mhm.
I really wanted, like, my social media be about the people who were following me. So what were the things that they wanted to hear? What were the things that they might be struggling with? What were some of the challenges that they were facing? And then try to speak into that. And how I do that is obviously, of course, through quotes and things, but then also through my journey and sharing my own experiences, so that while it's about me, I'm really trying to make it not as much about me, but as about the people who might be following me on Instagram or Facebook or something. And so that they can also see a post or something and just feel refreshed for a minute or whatever it is, or feel encouraged or motivated somehow.
Yeah, I love that you were willing to allow people to see themselves in you and in your
Mm,
story, and insert themselves in a way, right?
yeah, of
Because that's actually what caught my attention. Of course, you follow your friends and stuff. Okay, cool,
course.
hold out, I like that. Or hey, cute kid, great. Family's out, they're watching Hallmark, everything. That's
That's right.
great.
That's right.
Like I really follow. Like I'm a Rommel fan. But then something's happened. You started really telling stories about, hey, y'all, my marriage was in trouble. I noticed our parenting styles and things with my kid. Hey, there was one quote specifically I want to really go there with.
Yeah.
Don't sacrifice your marriage or relationship. I'm putting or relationships
Yeah.
because, like, for those who may not be married or have a partner, there's still high value relationships in our lives
Mm,
that, if we're not careful, we make secondary. And you say, don't sacrifice your
yeah.
marriage for your career.
Yeah.
And then if it's, I'm gonna continue to read the caption. And if you
Yeah.
guys can relate, if you're watching the live show, drop us a comment. If you're catching the replay and you can relate to this, check out the show notes because it gets good. I'll admit this has been a hard principle for me throughout my marriage. You relate. And he said, after all, we need to make money to earn a living. That requires hard work, determination, sacrifices, time, and energy. As an entrepreneur, my mind is going all the time on things for my business. I get
Yeah.
that.
For real.
When I was in the corporate world, I spent my off days worrying about work, and my work days thinking about my off days. Ooh, ooh. Did that hit y'all like that hit me? I felt like you
Woo.
in my head and in my business. Yeah. Then you say none of this was helpful for my marriage.
Yeah.
That hit me personally because I've had to deal with that in my relationships
Mm-hmm.
and in my family dynamic with parents. I'm a grandparent that I care for,
Yeah.
and this guilt set in, like I had to choose one or the other. Talk about what made you go there, but then,
Mm.
yeah, like this is one of your most responsive posts.
Yeah.
So talk
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, even as you were reading, like, the caption and something, I was just thinking of some of the things that were being stirred up. So on a big picture front, one of the big reasons I shared that is within the last year, I've been working on a program for to help people in their marriages, an e-course, and we're still in the putting it together because we still have a business to run. This is another piece of
Yeah.
the business, and so marriages have just been on my mind for really the past year. And where it really came back in my mind was when we started to see numbers with the COVID shutdowns and everything, of divorce rates going up and marriages struggling and people struggling because now they were home all the time, or they were around each other more. And so again, it just kind of stirred in me this remembrance, if you will, of that, years and years and years ago, I wanted to help people in their marriages. And so it kind of felt like, hey, this was now time to do a full circle moment, right? So this is kind of the big picture thing of this is just marriage. So helping people in their marriages has been on their mind. And then, why I decided to share that particular thing at that time, honestly. And so this is full vulnerability, full openness. And then, there's some backstory to it. But, my wife and I had one of our kind of what we call like our marriage tune-up conversations where we just go, hey, so like, how are we doing? And we hadn't done one of those in a while because we've just been paddling so hard and just trying to adjust, like I think everyone has, to the post-COVID world and all the crazy, right? All the stuff.
Right.
And so we were having this conversation, and at the end of the conversation, it was super good. She shared some things, I shared some things. We came to some agreements and how we were going to be able to move forward. I think we both felt valued and heard and cared for. And some of the topics weren't fun, but we hung in there. We had a good convo. We were able to move forward. But right before we were wrapping up, if I remember correctly, my wife says, hey, there's one more thing I want to share with you. And I'm not quite sure how to bring this up.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. And she says, sometimes I feel like the way she said, like, I'm taking a back seat to your business. And I was like, oh, like it's happening again, And because we've been so trying different things and being creative, and some of it's been super fun, right? Like instead of traveling all over the country, I've been able to do things here in my home office, work with lights and the technology and the camera, and I like this stuff, like this is good.
Yeah.
And so my creative juices are going, oh my gosh, I could tell a story this way, or I can do this. But then my wife reminded me one more time, like, hey, I'm here. And what was so awesome is how she shared it. She goes, I know you're working hard and I know you're doing it for our family and I love you for it. Thank you for doing that. I just want to share this piece of my heart that sometimes I can feel that I'm taking a back seat. And I was like, ooh, okay. And so that was like a convicting moment for me where I went, okay, let me see where that's happening, made amends. I apologized for it and started to do some small shifts. And then actually a couple other things happened in that interim period too, where and some sad things, we've had some friends close to us, lose, like one lost a son, and we've had some loss in like my extended church family. And I will tell you, whenever, and in general, and also as a minister, whenever I'm at a memorial service, I've not yet heard someone say, man, our dearly departed brother sure wish he worked more. It was always about people. It was always about the impact. It was not about the money or not about this. And not that, again, we've got to pay, we've got to work to live and we've got to do all that stuff. But so we kind of have this convergence in the season of me just having marriages on my mind, me taking time to take inventory, my wife having the courage to tell me that comment, us having a great conversation around that, and then in my extended kind of network, having some loss, having people close to us experiencing some losses, being to memorial service and celebrations of life, and going once more again, going, no one here is going, wow, he was great with a spreadsheet, and he was 30, he was every year of his life, he was 0.8% above his, NOI plan.
Quoting stats or any of that.
And again, and what our work is important, our career is important. I love what I do. I know you are so good at what you do. You love what you do. So of course that stuff's important. But, at the end of the day, and actually there's one more thing. Sorry. A client reached out, they'd heard a keynote I gave, and they wanted me to speak specifically to about marriages. But this was a group of high-powered achievers who had been like killing it in the business world. But one of the challenges that they were facing was that their marriages were suffering. And he's like, Rommel, can you speak to that? And I was so blown away that someone in the corporate world would want me to speak to their organization on this. And all of this, and I think it was just divine that all of this came together. And it just got me thinking in my own life, hey, where have I been sacrificing my marriage? And and then just going, hey, well, if it's working, if that message is running in my life, maybe it's running in someone else's life. So let me go and share, that with other folks, and hopefully encourage and motivate them to take a look at the people they love and prioritize them just as much as, or I mean, even more so than they might prioritize work. And that big client that you got to work, that you got to, that you drop everything for 365, out of the year, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how that was.
I'm so grateful to hear the backstory behind the post, and the way you framed it in the caption it was jarring enough to make us evaluate self and insert ourselves in that circumstance. And as you were talking about the executive, the CEO that's like, hey, I need you to talk about marriages. I think COVID forced us all to evaluate and look at relationships differently.
Yeah.
Here's the unique thing, though, about being the blend, which is our topic today, is you're living a blended lifestyle where what you and I have in common, Rommel, is the three areas of kingdom, corporate, and community, right? That
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
That's who I serve.
Yeah.
That I activate voices in kingdom, corporate, and community. And they're like, because the truth is this. Whether we're talking about ministry or the kingdom of God, which is an organism, a body in itself, whether we're talking about corporations, which we serve in the marketplace, or whether we're talking about communities and the service work you do and the things you do with Air Patrol and the other ways you give back, or whether myself and things like that, the mission is always the same. It's just a different organizational group of people. And so what I also, tell me if this hits for you too, oftentimes as ministers especially, we go through it first before we can help get other people out of it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And I actually think that is what gives us the credibility, and I think the empathy that can require, whether you're an official minister, like being an ordained minister, a pastor, a lay, just minister in whatever spiritual faith one might have. But I really agree. I think, the struggles I've had in my life, especially, I mean, because funny story, so I went through a divorce before, years ago, right? Many years ago. That actually was one of the catalysts for me to want to speak to relationships.
Wow.
Because I went through a divorce when I was 29 years old, had been married almost 5 years, and that marriage ended. And that was a surprise to me when it ended. I thought we were doing okay, And so I came out of that. I went, I got stuff to learn. So let's learn this. And then having to go through, where my wife and I were on the verge of divorce, my second wife. So I got remarried, and I remember I had one of those moments where I went, wait a minute, like, I speak on how to win with people, but I'm on the verge of my second divorce. Like, what?
It's like, wait, do I know what I'm talking about?
Like, I know, like, what is happening here? Like, literally, Melissa, I kid you not. So when my wife and I were having this conversation, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've heard this before. Here we go. I mean, I literally went to my website, started scrubbing references to being married and stuff, because I was like, who's going to hire the guy that's going to help you win with people?
It's funny, but
I'm like, I got to find something else to talk on. Maybe I can work on budgets.
I'm like, there's no way they're going to pick me.
No. But then, what was so good is going through that, though, and actually even sharing that story and going, the reason I'm able to speak about this is because I've been through the fire and I've come out on the other side. And I can tell you that, like, those setbacks were a setup, right, for the comeback. Oh, then there's that credibility, much more so than I would have if I was like, hey, the reason I'm going to talk to you today is because I got 9 degrees in every field, or in marriage, or in communication. Again, not that those are bad things, but the reason people listen to me is because, like, bro, let me tell you, man, don't do what I did, and that is actually, so walking through the fire, walking through the valley, and then coming out on the other side, ending up on the mountaintop, going back in another valley, going up on the mountaintop.
It's called living.
That's right. It's called living.
And mountaintops.
Yeah.
That's what life is like.
Ooh, that's so good. That is living. that is living. And there's something in us that goes, well, why is this happening to us? And I'm like, because
Mhm.
it's living, it is living. And so I'm totally with you that I think going through the struggles and the challenges enable us to be better ministers, however we minister on the other side. Now, sometimes I got to admit, sometimes like, God, maybe I don't want to be as effective in ministering to people with this struggle. Like,
Let me take this again.
yeah,
Let me take this test.
I can be empathetic without going through this fire, God. I'm telling you, I
Well, oh my gosh, I so looked forward to this conversation because one of the challenges, if you'll let me go off script for a second, that I've always personally had, and I felt like you were a kindred spirit in a way. I had someone say to me once, and I've mentioned this in a previous episode. I promise I've gotten over this, but it's so appropriate every time I talk to someone. We always have that person that's like, so what do you do again? Because when people follow us, they're like, you're doing all these things. Like, what is it? And it's like, all of those things. Can I just be me? Can I show up as the sum total of who I am? And depending on, hey, maybe you need relationships at your church, I can talk to you about the managers, the members.
yeah,
Maybe you need relationship help in your organization.
yeah,
And for you, it was in a very unconventional way, but you know that you are gifted and qualified, hello, to talk about healthy winning
yeah,
relationships, how to win a relationship.
yeah.
You can win at life. I love your tagline. And so I think, have you kind of gotten over that fear initially of putting that vulnerability and that the life stories out there because it's endeared people to you, like I said, or hey, it's gotten you more work?
Yeah, 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 both. I think as I see people relate to it, and especially when you get the messages of, I mean, encouraging messages are great, right? So obviously, I like it when people like a post. I've got an ego. But I especially like it when people are like, I could relate, or thank you for putting voice to something that I was thinking or feeling,
Mhm.
and you see that is making an impact. Because I just think so many people walk around feeling like they're alone,
Mhm.
that they're the only one that's going through that thing or that struggle, or they're at work and they feel like no one gets them, or they go to an amazing church that's got 30,000 people in it, but they feel like no one knows who they are. I mean, I
Mhm.
just think that feeling of we're an outlier, we're on the outside, we're not in the inner group is
Mhm.
just something that most people, or maybe everybody, has some kind of challenge with, struggle, or that feeling of, you know, no one cares or no one hears or no one's paying attention to me. And especially in this day and age, I think where um, the voices that get heard are the loud ones and the fire and the super bold, and those are great. We need fire, right? We need bold, we need loud, we need um, you know, just super powerful. And we also need quiet and gentle. And we need just people wherever they are in their space, doing stuff. Like, it's so funny. There's a bunch of preachers I love listening to on the faith side of things. And some of those preachers are screaming the whole time in their microphone. And I love it. And they're, I mean, and I'm like, how do they do that? Service after service, week after week, year after year, like they're screaming. And I love it. And there's other preachers that are super
Hollers, yeah.
low key. The hollers, yes, the hollers, and they got the towel and there's other preachers that are super conversational in their approach, and they just share and they talk, and there's no yelling, no spit flying everywhere. And I like them just as much. Like, there's sometimes where I need boom, give it to me. And there's sometimes where I just need someone kind and gentle, and we can be all is necessary
Yeah.
for that. And so it's just been fun for me as I've been sharing more and doing more of that stuff. Certainly as we're trying to build some aspects of that business, which require me to dive into more of those places anyway. But it's just been fun and meaningful to see people reacting in I was going to say in healthy ways. I don't know if that's the way I want to say, but I guess reacting in ways that aren't just about the popularity of a post or,
Yeah.
like, because sometimes that stuff drives me crazy. I don't know if I'm honest, like some of the social media stuff that you got to do and some of the things that people put out there that are literally just to get likes or just to get people go viral, but has
Mhm.
not a lot of value,
Substance.
substance, sometimes that part drives me nuts. And yet at the same time, I would love to go viral. So, I'm like,
But you know what though? I want to share this with the audience
yeah.
that we can't get so caught up in the likes and the comments or the
Mm,
followers because you said yourself the posts that matter hit the right people
yeah.
and it hasn't had a direct correlation or impact on how we serve, how
Yeah.
far we reach, and how we get paid. I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, it's like I'd rather have quality over quantity. And that's one thing about being the blend
Mm, yeah.
is that you stop caring about that stuff and you're more in tuned to what feels real to you. And
Yeah.
I'd rather do what feels real to
Yeah.
me than what feels right for social media.
Yeah.
Like you get the gurus talking about you got to post this many times a day and this. I can't. Like I just took a whole week off. I lost 2 followers. Okay, like I was still, business was still going, and I came back.
Yeah.
I'm well rested and I'm more capable
Yeah.
of delivering to my people. And so I've seen you do the same. I've seen you say, hey, I'm at the office, it's family time, or hey, I'm doing air patrol today. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm ministering today. Hey, I'm doing. And you know what? One word for it, it humanizes us.
Hmm.
Being
Yeah.
the blend makes us human. You alluded earlier to being on stage and someone saying, man, like I'm so used to they look don't let the stages fool you. Yes, it's called a platform
Yes.
for the sake of literal elevation. We're just a step of
Yeah.
audience, but we are
Yeah.
the audience. We just happen to be a few steps ahead of where you are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. That's so good. Um, yeah, I like that. We are, and I would say like for your listen, yeah, your viewers right now that it's just, we can get so enamored with that person's got 30,000 followers on Instagram, or that person's got this, or that person's on a stage. If I were on a stage, I could impact people. And I would share this, when we were at a celebration of life service for someone who was lost way too young,
Mhm.
no one, anyone would know from a public setting, but man, that church was filled with people who were impacted by
Mhm.
this person's life. I mean, it was beautiful. I actually texted, the friends that we had that they lost a son, and
Mhm.
I just said, hey, I want to let you know I was so inspired
Mhm.
by that service, by
Yeah.
that celebration, and to see the impact that this person had made, even in the short time that person was on this side of eternity, right?
Mhm.
And I went, see, it's not all about the lights and the glamour and the glitz. And sometimes, we're going to get that. Like you and I have platforms, you and I have people who know us, you and I have people who pay us to speak or to consult or to coach.
Mhm.
And I know for you, you give more the 10, I bet it's 10 times the value, more than that, of when someone pays you to do something, that the value they get from that is way more than what they're actually paying you, because you're a person of integrity, right? You're going, hey, listen, you might be happy with if I did 50%, but I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to do, so people know that. But and I try to give max value as
Mhm.
well. But it's amazing when we think of the kind of people um, uh, that actually are making a huge impact. And I think we're going to be surprised at the end of all things when we go who the people are being celebrated. And it's not always going to be the people who were well known or famous or had a ton of resources or a huge following, or had people that even whatever. Like we're going to find, I think, that stuff, I think they're great tools, don't get me wrong. I think
Mhm.
technology today is an amazing way that we can encourage and connect with people. But I think sometimes we can get so caught on well, that's what success looks like, and that's what I got to be. And as you've been talking about, being the blend is being you is all about that right combination that God created a masterpiece, right? He calls us his masterpiece, and he's, while we're always working and shifting, and he's molding the clay, and there's some things we got to get rid of and some things we got to embrace and run with. I just feel like what the world needs is just people radically themselves in a good way, and then committed to their own growth, and then committed to helping other people grow in positive, powerful ways.
Mm-hmm. We'll be surprised who's celebrated the end of it all. That right there. Look, when we come back, I want to talk more about your mission of, helping others, winning people. What does that mean? And how did you begin to win more people and make a bigger impact as you became the blend? I want to unpack that more. Guys, you are tuned in to the Activation Hour. I'm your host, Melissa D. I'm here joined with my friend Rommel Anacan, coach, relationship expert, leader. I mean, he's just dynamic. Make sure you follow him. All of his contact is below on IG at Rommel Anacan and RommelAnacan.com. Also, subscribe. If you're watching this right now, don't be stingy. Hit the share button and share it with other people. And make sure you leave us a comment. This is an interactive live show that you're watching. If you're catching a replay, you can check out the show notes for more details. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We're just going to shout out our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by the HR Plug, bringing you more content about how to be an essential employee. I am imperfectly essential. Workplace declarations affirming your value as leaders by author, coach, and the HR Plug, LaShawn Davis, who set out to give us daily affirmations and declarations. This impactful collection of affirmations highlight how we're imperfectly essential in the workplace and to remind yourself of the value you bring to your organization. Words, they can be simple, yet so powerful. Imagine reading and writing words to help get you through the workday and make you feel empowered. When you begin to feel the weight of your work wearing you down, recite these declarations and have a pep talk with yourself. Remember, I am imperfectly essential. Follow the HR Plug and get your copy today. Activation Coaching International, where we're on a mission to activate 1,000 coaches, speakers, and business owners to monetize, repurpose, and package your message, allowing you to attract your ideal clients and build platforms using your voice that generate multiple streams of income. We've helped countless coaches achieve optimal results to get the training and support they need for a successful coaching practice and speaking business. Become a certified life and business coach to enhance your skills and serve at mass. Learn how to build a platform that attracts your ideal clients through Activation Coaching International. Apply today. All right. Thanks again to our sponsors, the HR Plug, for sponsoring our series on becoming. And guys, thank you for sticking around. I'm back with my guest, Rommel Anacan, and we were talking about winning people. Tell us about that mission, because I think that's pretty awesome. How do you win people?
Whew. Man, that is an ongoing journey every day. But so here's where that started was, I mentioned earlier in this episode about going through divorce. Mm-hmm. And that actually so jarred me that I realized that I hadn't paid any kind of attention whatsoever to how I related to people, how I connected with people, how I communicated with people, what my impact on people was. Obviously, I got a tangible evidence of that when when I went through the divorce. I was like, oh, my impact might be negative because obviously okay.
Yeah. So, but it's time to change something.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk about some brutally honest feedback. That was pretty brutally honest. Yeah. But that actually started me to learn about how to connect with people. And at first, it just started with marriages. I just wanted to learn how to have a better marriage again, so that if I had the ability to get married again, I didn't want to fall into the same traps. So I learned a lot of things. And as I was deeply studying and learning about stuff, I realized I was doing so many things wrong. But the reason that I was doing it wrong is because I was just doing what came naturally to me, right? Because I was wired a certain way, or I saw things a certain way, I had a certain personality. And so I didn't think anything was wrong because this was just my normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I had to unlearn what I learned, like Yoda and mentions in Star Wars. And I had to really, the big picture thing I had to learn was how I had to learn to do what came unnaturally. And so there was, but so it was all of this entire journey that made me just understand and realize how important winning with people is. And honestly, if you look at it, everything in our lives revolves around our ability to win with people, right? I mean, no one succeeds alone. So whether it's a marriage, you got to win with your spouse. Whether it's with friendships, you have to win with your friends. If you're trying to get someone to hire you or promote you, you got to win with the hiring manager or the promotion manager. If you're trying to close a deal, the salesperson's got to like you. Like, everything in our life boils down to how we relate to people, how we connect with people, how we communicate with people, and really what our impact is on the
Mm-hmm.
people around us. You
That's
know, and so that was my journey for me. It was going, this could, it was, and I guess, honestly, it so blew my mind, and it was such like that big like watershed moment for me when I realized, like, I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, that I just became an evangelist for it. I saw the impact that the negative impact
mm-hmm.
it made by not being aware. And then I started to see the positive impact when I started to shift it. And I saw it in small ways, just having more friends or being better at sales or, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started to see the traction from that, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is what life's about. We're all wired for connection. We're all wired to want to be in relationship with people. So it behooves us to spend time on how do we make that better, right? How do we have the kinds of relationships that we all desire and want? And oh my gosh, and it's hard, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard.
Very hard, but it's
It's hard.
intentional. You,
Yeah.
you, I like that you're referring back to everything you've said today to me, like the fact that you intentionally went to the men's group, you intentionally did a self-examination and self-awareness. If I had to sum this up, so I've been kind of making my own Rommel's checklist for like becoming the blend here,
Yeah.
which guys, you can check that out in my show notes. Was the first, be vulnerable to become human, really is what you did. But then you have to go from your instinct to intention.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good.
I went from what I would naturally have done to now I had to set an intention of a new habit because what I was doing before obviously wasn't working.
Yeah. 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 And that's so good because what a lot of people rely on in almost anything. You pick a skill, pick a thing, pick whatever. We rely on untrained intuition, right? Like we think we'll naturally know how to be a good spouse or how to be a good child, how to be a good parent, how to be a good friend, how to be a good leader, how to be a good pilot, how to be a good speaker. And so we run into trouble when our intuition runs into the ceiling that we're all going to run into somewhere in our life. Now, some people in a certain area, you're going to have more skill, more ability, more natural talent. You're going to go farther before you hit the wall.
Wow.
I just hit the wall pretty early.
Wow. Wow.
You
You
know,
know what? This is almost like a spinoff, right? Because this excites me. I love studying just human change. I mean, activation is a part of that. There's always
of
something.
course.
A lot of times it's probably is some type of trauma or tragedy that activates us because it
Hmm.
does us. It's
Yeah.
like it wakes us up. It's like, whoa,
Yes.
I was just living and out here doing what I naturally do, and then this hit me.
Yeah.
And I cannot go back. Like
Yeah.
it will be the same after this happens to me. For you, it was divorce. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, didn't do that well. I
Yeah.
do not want to repeat this trauma.
Yeah.
Do not want
For
to repeat,
sure.
nor do
Yeah.
I want other people to
Yeah.
experience it, which
Yep.
has birthed the thing that you do with the relationship
Hmm.
difference
Yeah.
and with winning people to win lives, right? Um, somebody who is listening now, right? I want you to talk specifically to people that are maybe in the middle of a and they're like, "Why in the world?" Like, I'm over here doing this, I'm doing that, all these things in my life, nothing makes sense. I'm trying to pull it all together. What encouragement can you give? Because you were in that place
Mm-hmm.
before, and a divorce, building a business. It's like, how you? We talked about it earlier. Like, how
Yeah.
hire me if I can't, like, for relationships, and I'm struggling. Talk to
Yeah.
me for a minute.
Oh man. So whoever's watching, if you're in that season right now, first of all, I just want to say I am so sorry.
Mm,
And I get it. I get it. And I know that it's hard. It's a struggle. It can feel very discouraging. You can feel disappointed. You can feel disillusioned. Um, so I totally get it. And I've been there. And I'm going to get there again. It's just as we were talking earlier in the episode, life is that, it's a constant. You're on the roller coaster of it. What I would say, is just really, so there's hope to move forward. There's hope to keep moving. There's hope. There is, and I know sometimes that sounds like a cliche, right? And someone just says, "Hey, you just need to let go and let God, and okay, move on now."
yeah, yeah.
And then that just feels like patronizing, and so certainly not trying to do that. But if you're in that season where it just feels, you feel hidden, you feel maybe not, people aren't noticing you. What I do know is this part of the experience is where that growth is happening. It's where that change is happening. It's where your character is being formed and where it's growing. And honestly, where you are going to discover that you are stronger than you think you are, that you are able to actually do more than you think you can. You're able to move forward in an even larger, bigger, more powerful way than you ever thought you could have, that you never would have known if you weren't in the season right now where you feel hidden, where you feel anonymous, where you feel like things just aren't going well. Right. So what you just, one of the things that helped me was just having that self-awareness for me to go, okay, so where I am right now, what are some things that I need to do? So for me, faith being an important part of my journey, I invited God into that and just going, God, where I need to work, where do you want me working in this? Or where do I need more healing? What's the trauma that happened that I might need help on? And so for me, can I be honest? I couldn't do that alone, and neither can you. So I met with a therapist, I met with my mentor, and I had a group of people that I met with on a weekly basis. I read
Mm,
books, I listened to talks. I mean, I had a tribe of people around me in that process where I was refining and letting go of some things that weren't working for me and taking on new things that were working for me. And really honestly, I just had to rediscover who I really was. And it was and it was such a good, powerful, amazing journey. And you know what's so great about it, and what I want to give you the encouragement is, when you find yourself starting to, like, when you're more on the mountain than the valley, you might not even know that's happening, right? Because you're just moving. You're taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. You're giving whatever it is to your higher power. You're surrendering things. You're enjoying the moments that you can. You're finding peace in the moments. You're pursuing serenity. And then one day you're going to have a friend that says, you know what? Something's different. Or, you seem more at peace, or you seem more happy. And then your brain is going to get like blown, because you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I've actually been on like the good side of this struggle, because you've been learning new things, you've been growing in different ways, you've been experiencing, you're becoming the better version of you, authentic and true and real. And you're coming to not coming to terms, that's the way I want to say it, but you're going, listen, I'm imperfect, and I'm loved, I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm valued, I'm cared for. And for me, it was going, God is turning all of this around and using it for good. He's turning the setback season into a setup for my comeback. And when I started to see that happening, I was like, oh, this is real. This is real. So what's so great now is, when I go into another setback season, I've seen enough comebacks to know the comeback is coming. The comeback is coming.
wow.
you know.
I've seen enough comebacks to know that a comeback is coming. Woo, guys. Don't miss this moment. This is literally your call to activation, to be the blend. You don't have to leave pieces of yourself on the floor,
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
pieces that have transformed you. Let
Yeah.
that be the piece to elevate you.
Yeah.
Let that be the
Oh,
thing that
yeah.
helps show up for the people you're called
Yeah.
to serve. If you are
Yeah.
struggling, Rommel and I can attest to this.
Mm-hmm.
But if all of those that are struggling with social media like us, honestly, it's like not that we don't know how to do it. It's just it's a lot. It's a job, and you're like, what do I want to know what to post today?
That's right.
Post your struggle, but post and tell a story about how you're going through it,
Yeah.
and then watch what people do.
Yeah. Oh, so
People
good.
love to watch a winner.
Mm-hmm.
Show how you're winning
Yeah.
in the how can you win if you've never got in the game?
Yeah.
Like people don't hire coaches and speakers that have never been through
Mm-hmm.
anything. They're not looking
Yeah.
for perfect people.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not.
No, they're not. No, they're looking for something they can relate to, right? That they can connect with, um, that know them, that they feel that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that connection with. You're right. You're right. People, they don't want to work with perfect people because then it's hard to trust someone who's perfect. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing once a wise leader told me, I never trust a leader without a limp. You know,
Ah,
I was like, oh, that's so true, right? Like an untested leader who's
mm,
never been to struggle or pain or something where, you know, that person just completely messed up is a dangerous leader, you know,
mm,
or whatever it is. I mean, that testing humbles us to the point where we're like, all right, we don't have all the answers.
mhm,
Or whatever it is, whatever that journey is for someone. But, you know, and I've heard preachers and stuff say, you know, your mess can become your message.
mhm,
And it's so true. I know that is what it is in my life. My biggest failure in life is now the thing that I run with every day in terms of a message. And, you know, and when my current marriage almost got, you know, failed, that growth that happened because I had to come to grips with some of my failures again
mhm,
is the fuel right now that can helps me help people in their marriages, in their work relationships, or wherever it is. So my mess is completely my message, and it's kind of it's kind of cool, you
mhm,
know, that's how life tends to work. And so if you're going through a mess right now, that mess is going to become someone's message, your message, and someone's going to need to hear your story or your unique story and how you went from this to this. Like they're going to want to hear from you, and people need to hear your voice and your
mhm.
story.
I couldn't have said it better. They need to hear your voice
Yeah.
and your story. And just to sum that up, you said your failure is your fuel. It's not your weakness, it's your fuel. That
Yeah.
is rocket fuel. If you are trying to go to the next level, do y'all want to know a hack? The hack is to talk about the failures, talk about the low point,
Yep.
and then you frame
Mm.
how you got out of it. That's how you win.
Yes.
That's how.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you know, you look at this in terms of even like all the movies you love, right? All the movies you love that are epic movies, or good story movies, it's the same thing, isn't it? You meet the lead character. The lead character is thrust into a different something. It's a challenge. It's a struggle. They experience a failure, fear, and now we watch that lead character's journey, to see if that person's going to come out on the other side a better person, a transformed person. Now, usually that lead character doesn't achieve it alone. There's usually someone wise that helps that person. There's an Obi-Wan or a Yoda.
Mhm,
Rudy is one of my favorite movies. And so there was Fortune in Rudy, or, you know,
mhm,
Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings, whatever it is. But there's that wise person or wise people that help the lead character overcome that struggle, overcome that challenge, overcome their own internal mess to come out on the other end and have the happy ending we all want at the end of a movie. And I think there's a reason why movies are structured around that, because those stories are inspiring to us, right?
mhm,
We want to see that, which means that people want to see that in me, people want to see that in Melissa, and I'm assuming people want to see that in the people who are watching this as well. Like, it's just, we want those redemptive stories
Mm-hmm.
because we
Mm-hmm.
want that hope. There's no movie made like the person born had everything handed to him. Everything's great, no struggles, no challenges, got $1 billion in the bank, and that would be a boring movie.
And there's some type of demise. There's some
Yes.
downfall. The fall from people love when people fall from glory. I think they love that more than the rise back to the top. It's crazy,
I think they
but
do.
use that. It's the truth. Shout out to Donald Miller. It's your story.
That's right.
Framework.
Yeah, for real. It's the story. It's the hero's journey and you apply that anywhere, any movie, that hero's journey. I think Joseph Campbell kind of created that first. And he talked about that. Hollywood uses that. Yeah, Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, awesome book.
Yes.
And so that story brand, that story and that idea of redemption, that here you are, and here's the redemptive process, and here's the reframe, and now here's the maybe it's the resurrection or the restoration, and now here that lead character is exactly who they were supposed to be. Then we all want that. What I think is so interesting, like Rudy, I love sports movies. Rudy's still a motivational speaker, right? He goes and he talks to people. If you've watched the movie Rudy, like the guy had no football skill whatsoever.
Nope.
Zero. Right? He's 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing. Had no lick of athletic ability. He's a motivational speaker because he gets to tell people how a guy that was 5 foot nothing made it on Notre Dame, had a movie made after him. And he made a living inspiring people. I still cry at the end of Rudy. Inspiring people. Right now, if Rudy was 6'5", 300 pounds, came from a super rich family, got a scholarship, there's no movie made after him. No one's watching that movie.
It's the thing that's abnormal. Oh, thank you. This is a perfect wrap up. Oh, you walked me right into it. It's the thing that makes you abnormal that makes you stand out from the rest.
Woo!
Embrace your abnormality.
Write that down. Write that down.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Your abnormality is your superpower to activation. Embrace that thing.
Oh,
Patrick Moore. And I remember right when I was starting my multifamily industry speaking career. And big hair. Traditionally, I have a big afro. And I'm just me. I'm loud. I'm excited. I can't help it. He said, don't you change a thing. He said, I know you don't see anything like you right now. That's good. Don't change it. You take all of that and you go out with that. And it was, and hey, maybe it endeared some, maybe it turned some. I don't know. I'll never know because they never told me to my face. But those who hired me and those who wanted, they came and said, no, I need it different.
Yes.
I need it different because you resonate with my people.
Yeah.
I needed someone who spoke their language, meaning their experiences. Yeah. I needed someone who could get right to it. And it's no knocking that. Like, hey, it's no knock others, but it's the thing you have that people need. Don't put the thing you have on the shelf.
Yeah. And that's the blend, right? Becoming the blend. Like, so when people are seeing you in you, like you are you, they hired you
for you.
And people are resonating with you because of you. And so when you're that blend, and that's when people are impacted. And I think you touched on it too. That's also when you're going to get some arrows thrown at you. So when people are going to look at you and go, I don't know about that.
It's okay.
And it's okay.
Yeah. You have no idea how many no's I hear. I got really good at handling rejection. I'm the master of, I'm the comeback queen from a no.
Nice. Yeah.
But my yeses are big and my yeses are loud and my yeses have my name on it and my yeses are just ripe for me. I love that you talk about fruit. And Dr. Debbie Phillips, I have my sign right here on my desk. I can right in front of me. Says, I have chosen you, go bear fruit that will last.
Yeah.
John 15:16.
Yeah.
Only blended people have eternal everlasting fruit.
Yeah. Because
you have to know how to expect the seed Plant
Mm-hmm.
the seed,
Yeah.
water the seed,
Yeah.
and harvest the seed. They have to know how to move in all of those
Yeah.
spaces.
Yeah. Woo! And you gotta have good, right? I mean, I heard a preacher say this. I wish I came up with it, but it was, when you got good fruit, it starts. Good fruit starts with a good root, right? So being a blended person means
Mm,
that root is good, and when that root is good, and you're watering, and you're cultivating, and you're harvesting, and you're pruning, and you're doing all that stuff, then you get that good fruit. Oh man! And when your life is fruit, that is,
good fruit
it's
has good.
good fruit. Yeah.
Look, if you want to get rooted, produce good fruit, and be the blend, connect with Rommel. Rommel, what new projects do you have going on? What are you launching? Tell the people how
Oh
they
man.
can.
So cool deal. Well, I'm excited. I'm working right now on a marriage program. It's called A Marriage You Love, and helping people go on it's going to be a course. We're still working on the specific, probably 6 to 8 week type kind of course. But if people want more information on that, if you just go on my Instagram page, you can go on the VIP wait list for A Marriage You Love. So if whether you're in a place in your marriage where people are either going, if you're feeling discouraged or disappointed, disillusioned, this is a great program for you. Or if you're like, nah, we're doing good, but we just want to, we just want more ideas on how to grow better, how to communicate better, that could be for you as well. So that's coming down a little bit later in the year. Projects keep dropping in my lap as a speaker and consultant, which is awesome. So I'm happy to do that. But that's coming around pike, and there's some really free stuff too. If you go to my Instagram page, you go on my link. There's some downloads where I help people both in marriages. So there's a couple of free downloads for marriages, some things on how to be a relational leader. So it's some really good stuff. And then some other things I'm doing some mini courses. I'm actually putting a couple of my most popular programs, kind of on a mini course format that people can watch. And one is going to be called the Relationship Difference. It's based on my people skills keynote.
Yeah.
So that one's coming down the pike here soon. And then another one on one of my most popular programs in 2020 was what to do when you're overstressed, overwhelmed, and over it.
That was good.
So we're putting that in. So we've got to work on that. But so those are a couple of things coming down the pike. And then, of course, as a speaker and a consultant, always doing new stuff and trying to be on the cutting edge of helping people be their best. But, people can find out about all that stuff. Just follow me on Instagram. It's probably the best way. I mean, I have a web page, but Instagram is probably the place you get the best, most updated information. And just click the link on the bio, and there's a bunch of free stuff on there. Download, feel free, avail yourself, and let me know if you followed through this podcast. Shoot me a DM and let me know that you saw the podcast with me and Melissa. And but I look forward to, if anyone wants to work with me on any of those things, would be honored to be a part of your growth journey too.
Oh, absolutely. Rommel, I honor you and your gifts and your time, and just this conversation has just totally energized me to keep being the blend. So guys, if this information was valuable to you, don't be stingy. Hit that share button, share it with someone, share it with your teams, with your spouse, or just with those that you want to build better relationships with as well, to be the blend. Also, leave a review. We want to keep bringing you great content like this. The series is not over. Make sure you follow us on all social media channels at The Activation Hour, or me, Melissa D. White, your host at Melissa D. White, and stay connected so you see more of our guests. Subscribe on audio platforms on Apple, Google, Pandora,
Nice.
those. Check out the show notes. I put all of my favorite snippets, and you can even subscribe to our email list. There's a lot of great freebies and behind the scenes things that I give to those on our email list. So again, Rommel, thank you so much. Follow Rommel. This information is there and also in my notes, and we'll see you on the next one. Stay activated, guys. Bye. If you love this episode, please make sure to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share with a friend. Also, if you really want to get behind the scenes, go now to our YouTube channel at The Activation Hour, The link is found in the show notes for you to actually see my guest live and in person, and to even catch more details of our conversation behind the scenes. Stay connected and join us next time for the Activation Hour: Purpose at Work and in the World.